Hello everyone, I hope this video finds all students well. And I do appreciate you coming back. Thank you for tuning in. It's 24th March and we begin this talk today about Unit 2 Energy Top Science. And first of all, let's us start with a small revision for Unit 1, revision for Chapter 1 around forces. And after you must answer all these questions at the bottom of the page and start to answer these questions and send the questions, the answer of the question for me to make correction for these questions. And you must check all these figures and start the answer what are names of the forces above between these figures A, B, C, and start to answer and send to for me to make corrections. This around to remember you the around the forces for Unit 1. Now let's start Unit 2 about energy and what is the naming of energy. You can see what are the different forms of energy. For that, the name, you can say the meaning, the name of energy, the ability to make things, the ability to help us to do more things, such as play football, sports, daily activities, all these points, all these activities that need more energy. Let's move on another part. The source of energy, that the major source on the earth is the sun. The sun provides us with two different forms, such as light energy and heat energy. Light energy and heat energy, different forms from the energy that produces from the major source is the sun. And I give you example, explain some example for light energy, such as candle, bulb light, and electricity light, and major source on the earth is sun. The plant need light for photosynthesis. Photosynthesis, the process in which the plant need it and use to produce or make food, to make sugar. So if the plant has no light energy, maybe will die. And the more animals, maybe directly or indirectly, that depend on the plant. If the plant lost the light energy, that will die, and also the animals will die. And the second energy, that heat energy. Heat is the form that makes us feel warm. The second energy. So check this figure and to understand and to check the source, such as from the food, from the fire, from appliance, electrical appliance, and all this source for the heat that help us to feel warm. And number 3 about sound energy, that is form of energy that we can hear from the different sounds that found in the environment. Let's move on. Another part is very important point in this class and start to understand all this potential energy. Potential energy, that kind of energy, that form from energy that is stored inside the body. So have different forms. Maybe have 3 different forms from the potential energy. Chemical potential energy, the first one. Chemical potential energy that include more forms, include different forms such as fuel. Number 2, around foods, kind of foods or drinks. All this potential energy that you can say chemical potential energy, the first kind. The second kind, gravitational. Gravitational or potential energy, that the second kind from energy that is very important point, and that all things, all plants, all animals on the earth that have this kind from energy, and that effect of any object is positioned, all plants, all animals on the earth that have this maybe found attraction from this kind of energy that found on the earth above the ground. And all in objects that depend on object, plants, animals, human body, anything that object that depend on the mass and height. So the gravitational potential energy that affect all things on the earth. You must check this figure. Gravitational potential energy that check this figure to check the all persons, all sportsmen that have changed from potential energy is gravitational. We could have more things. Have two types from things. Number one, mass and height. Number three, elastic energy that include more things, include more examples. It's found in elastic objects. In elastic objects such as springs, such as rubber bands, all the things that have kind of elastic energy. You must check all these pictures to understand the different forms from elastic energy. Number one, spring, two, that rubber band, and number three, all the cans from rubber bands. Number one, number two. Number one, the springs. Springs is a very important point, and you must understand the compressed and stretched. And doing the compressed, and after that, you can say leaves have different stages. The springs that is compressed has no elastic potential energy. However, when it is compressed or stretched, elastic potential energy is present. That during the compressed and stretched for the spring. And the same example for the elastic energy. You must check this point, check this figure, that rubber bands. That you can say rubber bands example for elastic potential energy. And we can be also found in rubber bands and the amount of elastic potential energy in rubber band. And the greater the rubber is stretched, the more elastic energy that produced, that can say stored and after used to do work and to push anything. That about springs. So make difference between springs and rubber bands. Rubber band, that the greater the rubber band is stretched, the greater elastic energy. And also springs, when you compressed and stretched, compressed and stretched, that produced the elastic energy inside these springs. So I give one questions about this elastic energy, and you must think and start to answer for these questions. Answers number one, number two for homework, and number two start to send to me to make corrections and if you have any mistakes. Number one, you must understand and explain. You must explain the differences between springs and rubber bands, and also explain one example how springs to work and how springs to take elastic energy. That have one answer. You must check this answer with me to correct and to record in your notebook. Springs have two cans, have two stages, compressed and you can say stretched. When compressed and stretched, that have a greater from elastic energy. Rubber band, the same movements. Compressed, this rubber band, when that you can say that when stretched, more stretched, that have more elastic energy that is stored and that you can say used to push anything. The same figure for the rubber bands, and you must understand one, two, three. Number one, number two, number three. The first one, that the greater, more elastic energy that is stored to push stone that found between the rubber band. That's example for around elastic energy and start to understand. So I give you a small summary about the potential energy that have three kinds. Potential number one, chemical energy such as foods and fuels. Number two, gravitational potential energy that I give you an example, and all object, any object that positioned on the earth that have gravitational potential energy, and elastic energy, that elastic objects that stored more energy that stretched or compressed such as springs and rubber bands. And I give you a small video to understand the potential energy and also the kinds of different forms from energy.
Energy is the capacity to do any work. Potential energy is a form of energy that an object possesses by the virtue of its position. Another way to think of it is as stored energy that has the potential to do work. Potential energy can be one of three types: gravitational, elastic, or chemical. Our focus for this session will be on elastic potential energy. Elastic potential energy is the energy that is stored in elastic materials and objects such as springs and rubber bands. If we compress a spring, the force we apply to it will be stored in the spring as elastic potential energy. Once we move our hand, the stored energy will be released, helping the spring bounce back and return to its original position. We can observe a similar phenomenon when we stretch the spring. The stored elastic potential energy will help it restore its original position once we release it. A stretched rubber band also acquires elastic potential energy. The further it is stretched, the more potential energy it has. Let's look at a bow and arrow. When the string of the bow is pulled, the bow, which is made of a flexible material, will bend and store energy. Once the string is released, the energy will also be released, launching the arrow. The further back the string is pulled, the more the bow will bend, allowing the arrow to travel even further once the string is released.
At the end of this section, thanks so much. With my best wishes. Goodbye.